Thank you, Gertrude. Hi, everyone. I'm Gloria Wilson. I live in the Central Valley of California in the United States, and here's my story. I had a fibroid tumor the size of a lemon when it was initially diagnosed. I was told by a doctor that if it did not bother me, meaning no symptoms, then I should not bother it. So I listened. I had no pain, no bleeding, no cramping. However, I also did not realize that over the years, the fibroid would continue to grow and it would take up more real estate in my uterus. In 2009, I decided it was time to get a primary OBGYN doctor, one who would get to know me and give me sound advice regarding my fibroid. Dr. Jones and I connected on day one. We laughed, we shared stories, and her advice to me was to have the fibroid removed immediately before it caused problems later on. However, 1 year later, still no symptoms, no pain. At each annual visit, Dr. Jones never failed to say I needed to have the fibroid removed. But again, I had no symptoms. My fibroid did not bother me, so I did not bother it. In my late 40s, premenopause set in, and I began to experience symptoms from that. In 2016, the premenopause symptoms were getting worse. My fibroid was the size of a grapefruit, and most of my pants did not zip up. I was wearing a size 10 when I typically wore a size 6. The fibroid had caused my uterus to protrude. One of my doctors said I looked as if I was in my 3rd trimester about to have a baby, but still, no symptoms from the fibroid. In 2016 of August, things changed. One day I hemorrhaged profusely. Then I knew it was time to have the fibroid removed. I called Dr. Jones's office. I made an appointment to see her. She examined me, and again, she said that fibroid needs to come out. I did research. I made an appointment to have robotic surgery. I watched the full robotic surgery on YouTube. The only female physician on the panel, my doctor shared with me, she recommended that I have the regular surgery, not robotic surgery. She thought because of the size of my uterus and the size of that fibroid coupled with my age, it would behoove them to also perform a biopsy of the tissue. The doctor called me with that news, and I replied, "Doctor, that's fine. At this point, I just want the fibroid removed. I don't want any excruciating pain to all of a sudden happen to me or surgery where it would be unbearable." So he said, "Come in, we'll perform the biopsy, and I will call you with the results." And he did. On August 22nd, 2016, I received a phone call that would change my life. The doctor said, "Gloria, this is Dr. Ramos. I have good news and I have bad news. What do you want first?" I said, "Doctor, give me the bad news first so we could end this phone call on a good note." He said, "Gloria," his voice was still sounding exciting, so I'm thinking, how could there be bad news the way he sounded? He said, "Gloria, you have uterine cancer." I froze. I was not expecting that. I said, "What does that mean?" He said, "It's treatable and you may not need chemotherapy, but I'll have to have you speak with the specialist who's now in charge of your care, and you'll have to have the regular surgery." After the phone call, I sat on my sofa. It felt like the entire world just stopped. And I looked around and I said, God, is my world about to change? I jumped up and no came out of my mouth. It was as if I hadn't said that. But I knew I had to take control. I could not call my parents right away to share this horrific news because 2 months prior, my mother had just completed treatment from breast cancer. Can you imagine me calling my mother to inform her that her baby has uterine cancer? We had just congratulated her on completing all of her treatment and doing so well. So I called my oldest sister and I said, now you know I'm having surgery. And she says, yes, I'll be there. I said, well, they did a biopsy and I have cancer. I threw it out there really fast. She started to cry. I gave her a minute or two to cry and I said, okay, enough of that. I need you to call mom. And she said, oh, I have to call her? I said, yes, you have to call her. I can't. So she did. And I waited and I waited and I waited. No phone calls from anyone. I called my parents home, no answer. And I thought, okay, they can't talk right now. So finally, my father returned my call and I could tell he had been crying. He said, listen to the doctors, do everything they tell you to do. I said, absolutely, Dad. I said, where's mom? He says, she's trying to get herself together. She's not doing so well. So I'm going to get off the phone and go take care of her. And I said, okay, I'll call later. My mother texted me maybe 30 minutes later, and she said, I'll be there. I'll be there as fast as I can. I don't want you to go through this alone. So within 2 weeks, I had a new doctor who would perform the regular surgery, who would be in charge of my situation. When I went to his office, he pulled up my chair in front of him and he looked in my eyes and he said, listen to me. I want you to do everything I tell you to do. I cannot guarantee anything. I won't know what's going on until I open you up. But you listen to me and we'll make sure you're fine. But again, there are no guarantees. My surgery was scheduled in September. Everything went well. I had a total hysterectomy. I had 7 treatments of chemotherapy. I had 4 treatments of radiation. And not once did I ever get sick. My doctors and nurses would say, well, during this time, this is what will happen. During this time, this is what you'll experience. They would call me at home and they would ask, so how are you? How are you today? Did this happen? And I would say, no, doctor, that did not happen. This did not happen. I'm fine. I would go to work. I would come home. I would do what I always did. Some days after chemotherapy, I would have to take 3 or 4 days to recover. But all of those side effects and illness they talked about, none of that ever happened to me. I always reflected on that day that I jumped up and no came out of my mouth. I knew cancer did not have me. I had it. I had it. I would be in control of my situation. I would be in control of my attitude. I would be in control of my disposition. I did everything the doctors asked me to do. I wore my wig. I put on my makeup. I kept a smile on my face. My friends would come visit. My family would come visit, and they would marvel at how I looked and how I sound and my disposition. I refused to have a sad moment. There were times at night I would cry, but I'd stop and I would say, no, I'm not going to lose control. I'm going to make sure I stay in control of this situation. 1 year and 2 months later, I was thriving. The cancer came back. This time it was in my lymph nodes. I had surgery 2 lymph nodes were removed. I had 5 treatments of chemotherapy. I had 2.5 months of radiation. I had to have radiation Monday through Friday, 10 minutes a day. I would go into the office. I would work after radiation, but again, with the chemotherapy, I would need some time to recover, but nothing major, nothing that caused me to be debilitated. I continued to live my life. I continued my lifestyle. I ate differently, but I would take my time to recover from the chemotherapy. But I also made sure that I controlled my attitude and my situation by staying positive. I think being positive when you have a situation like that is so important. And I always reminded myself, cancer does not have me, I have it. I have control of it. It has been a year and about 9 months since my last treatment, and I am still thriving. Never once did I say, God, why me? Never, because I thought, why not me? I have 3 other sisters. They have children, they have a family. And I thought if it had to be any of my sisters, I would prefer that it was me, because I didn't think they would be strong enough to handle this and to go through this right after my mother, our parents. My mother had to go through breast cancer, and she did really well. And she's thriving today. I tell you, ladies, I believe my situation, my results, my outcome would have been different had it not been for that only female physician who was on the panel when I was scheduled to have robotic surgery. It was that only female physician who said, no, we shouldn't do the regular surgery. We need to do a biopsy. Had she not advocated for me, things could have been a whole lot different. I probably would not be here sharing my story with you today. I had a lot of support throughout this ordeal with cancer. I continued to live my life, go places, wear a mask. By the time COVID-19 hit, I was a master at wearing a mask. My disposition was good. And I thought about the physician who advocated for me. So ladies, we have to be mindful of those shortcuts that we want to take in life. Sometimes it may not be the best decision. I was determined to have robotic surgery, which meant minimal downtime. I could get back to work. That wasn't a wise decision, but thanks to that female physician, things worked out. So I want to leave you with, it's not always about taking shortcuts. Forget the destination, make it a journey, you'll win. That's my story. Thank you.